It all started in the late spring of 2019, when the mornings still carried that chill off the hills, and the ground was soft underfoot from weeks of scattered rain. Our farm, nestled near the edge of the valley outside Penrith, Cumbria, was coming back to life after a long winter. The lambs were up and feeding strong, the hens were back to laying full, and the dairy cows had begun producing their usual yield again. Everything seemed normal, right until it wasn't. I'm not a man given to talking more than needed, but what happened that year isn't something I could ever forget. And since people keep asking about Marmalade, I figured it's time I told it right from the start. I'd raised Marmalade from a kitten. She was born in our barn, orange as sunrise with a white patch over her right eye. Her mother, Missy, had been a mouser, too, but Marmalade had something else, keen instincts and a calm, serious nature. She didn't dash about or play when there was work to be done. By the time she was a year old, she'd made a name for herself among the older farmhands, who started calling her the little inspector. She'd patrol the hayloft, the granary, and under the feed bins. You wouldn't see her for a day or two, then suddenly a pile of mice, neatly laid, would appear on the stone threshold of the milking shed. We didn't know we were in trouble until it was already well underway. It began subtly, with the chickens. One morning, I found 3 hens dead in the coop, necks stiff and eyes wide. I assumed it was a fox at first, but there were no bite marks. Just silence and feathers. That same week, a lamb went down. Then another. I called in the vet. She came, looked, took samples. A few days later, she came back pale-faced and told me what we were dealing with. Leptospirosis. Spread through rat urine, especially dangerous in livestock. The bacteria would contaminate feed, troughs, and hay, everything the animals touched. It was lethal in sheep, less so in cows, but it made the milk unfit for sale. If it spread, I stood to lose half my animals and most of the year's profit. Now, I run my farm clean. We rotate feed storage, keep sheds dry and aired, and we never leave waste lying out. But this strain was virulent, and the vet suspected we had a large rat population hiding somewhere it hadn't before. I didn't need telling twice. I called pest control the next day. 2 weeks passed. They put down bait, set traps. The official tally came to 11 dead rats, and they declared the job done. But the deaths kept coming. I lost another 3 lambs, 2 more hens, and one of my dairy cows miscarried. That hit me hard. One evening after the sun had gone down, I was sitting out near the east barn with a mug of tea, just thinking. That's when I saw her, Marmalade, slinking along the edge of the hedgerow. She paused, ears forward, tail low. Then she was gone, slipping into the shadows. I knew that look. She was hunting. The next morning, I found 2 rats lying at the doorstep of the granary. They weren't chewed up, just killed, clean. Marmalade sat not far off, licking her paw. I didn't think much of it until it happened again the next morning. Then again the next. By the end of that week, Marmalade had killed 6 rats. I didn't find them in traps, and pest control wasn't laying new bait. I started wondering, where were they coming from? That night, I decided to follow her. I waited until dusk, poured myself a thermos of tea, and settled near the granary steps. Around 9:20, she emerged from under the hay trailer, tail swaying low, and padded off down the hedgerow again. I waited until she'd gone far enough not to notice me, then followed at a distance. She led me farther than I expected, through the sheep paddock, along the stream, past the old stone wall we hadn't used in years. There, hidden beneath the collapsed corner where the roots of an old ash tree had torn into the stones, she paused. Then she vanished. I crouched low and waited. A few minutes later, I heard it, scratching, rustling, and then a quiet chirp, a sound she always made after a catch. I couldn't see her, but I didn't have to. The next morning, I came back with a torch and gloves. Under that wall was a warren. Not a rabbit's, mind you, but a full-on rat den. Must have been a couple dozen tunnels, winding down into dark chambers. I found old feed sacks, shredded straw, chewed bones, and droppings everywhere. I couldn't believe it. That was where they were nesting. No wonder pest control hadn't found them. It was off their grid. I filled in the opening that day, blocking all the visible entrances with stone and earth. I rang pest control again, showed them what I'd found. They laid more traps near the wall and flooded the main chamber. Caught 4 more rats. But Marmalade wasn't done. She kept patrolling. Quietly, steadily, she kept killing. Over the next 2 weeks, she took down 6 more rats, 12 in total. Every morning, 1 or 2 bodies by the feed shed, or near the barn door. No signs of panic in her, no desperation, just precise, steady work. Then something changed. The deaths stopped. Not the rats, no, the animal deaths. No more chickens died. The lambs stopped going down. The vet came back, took new samples, and called me 2 days later. The infection was gone. It was as if the disease had been cut off at the root. No more contamination. No more signs of leptospirosis. The milk passed inspection again. I was back in business. The strange thing is, I don't think anyone believed me at first, not really. The pest control team claimed their traps did the work. The vet said it could have been a combination of treatments and luck. But I knew better. I'd seen Marmalade hunt. I'd followed her. I'd found the nest because of her. And when the rats were gone, she stopped bringing bodies to the door. She went back to lounging in the sun, sleeping in the hayloft, and watching the cows from atop the fence posts. I wouldn't be telling this now if it hadn't been for what happened a few months later, but I'll get to that. All I'll say for now is this: Marmalade didn't just protect the farm. She saved it, and she wasn't done yet. After the infection cleared and the livestock were healthy again, things returned to normal, or as normal as a working farm ever gets. Life doesn't wait around here. There's always another fence to mend, another trough to scrub, another calving to help along. But even in all that bustle, I found myself watching Marmalade more closely. I began to realize just how much I'd taken her presence for granted. Every farm has its rituals, and one of mine was feeding the animals at dawn. Marmalade would be there like clockwork, sitting by the barn door, tail wrapped neatly around her paws, eyes bright and still. I'd say something like, "Morning, lass," and she'd blink once, slowly, her way of saying it back. Then she'd vanish off into the fields or curl up on a sack of barley to doze. But after what happened that summer, I started noticing little details. How she always paused at the corners of buildings, how she sniffed the air before stepping into a feed room. She was always checking, always listening. Most people would miss it. But I was watching now. By mid-July, the summer sun was strong and high, and the grass had come in thick and sweet. The sheep were doing well, the cows were giving good milk again, and the hens were laying steady. But I started noticing something else: the pigs. I keep about 8 pigs at a time, rare breeds, mostly for local sale and curing. Good animals, hardy, clean, intelligent. But one by one, they started to act off. Not sick exactly, but skittish. Jumping at noises, refusing feed. The boar, who was normally a lazy lump in the shade, started pacing the fence. I thought maybe it was heat stress. We'd had a few hot days in a row, and pigs can be sensitive to that. I called in the vet again just to be safe. She examined them all, took blood, and ran her tests. 2 days later, she called me back. "Not leptospirosis this time," she said. "This is something else. Possibly salmonella. That was bad. Worse, in some ways. Salmonella in pigs can wipe out a pen, and it spreads fast through feed and water." I double-checked everything. Water lines, storage bins, even the hay I used for bedding. Then I found something. In the back corner of the pig pen, behind a disused feeder, I noticed fresh droppings. Not pig, not anything I recognized at first. But when I saw the gnawed corner of the feed bag stored in the next shed over, it hit me: rats. Again, not many, not like before, but enough. They were back. I didn't call pest control right away. Not because I didn't trust them, but because I trusted Marmalade more. I knew what she could do, and I suspected she already knew they were here. She'd started acting differently in the past few days, twitchier, restless. She'd sit for hours near the piggery wall, unmoving, staring at a spot beneath the wooden slats. I gave her space. That week, she brought in 3 more rats. 1 each night, always left by the pig pen. Then nothing for 2 days. Then, on a Friday morning in early August, I found a scene I'll never forget. Behind the pig shed, tucked in a dry hollow near the compost bins, I found 6 dead rats. all of them fresh, no sign of poison, no traps nearby, just the bodies neatly arranged in a row, as if she'd laid them out for me to see. Marmalade sat a few feet away, licking her paw. That day, the pigs settled. They began eating again. The pacing stopped. Whatever trace of infection there'd been, if there had even been one, didn't spread. I disinfected the area, torched the contaminated bedding, and reinforced the feed storage. The vet came again. No new cases. The pigs were cleared within the week. That was the second time Marmalade saved the farm. You might think that'd be the end of it, but there's more. Because later that autumn, she vanished. It was late October, the nights were drawing in, and the frost was starting to crust the hedgerows. I hadn't seen her in 2 days. That wasn't like her. I searched the hayloft, the sheds, under the trailers. Nothing. I walked the boundaries of the property, called her name, left food out in her usual spots. Still nothing. For 5 days, she was gone. On the 6th, I found her under the grain silo. Limping. Covered in dirt. She had a deep gash on her shoulder and a torn ear. I wrapped her in my jacket and drove her straight to the vet. She made it. Barely. Infection had set in, and she needed stitches and antibiotics. The vet said it looked like she'd fought off something, probably a weasel or a large rat. But the way she was injured made me think it wasn't just one. She must have been ambushed. I brought her home and kept her in the house for 2 weeks. She hated it, yowled at the windows, paced the hallway, but I wouldn't let her back out until she healed. When she was strong again, she didn't go straight back to hunting. She took her time. She was slower, more cautious. But her instincts never dulled. That winter, we had no rodent problems. None. The farm was quiet, healthy, and running smooth. Word spread, too. The local papers picked up the story, "Farm cat saves livestock." I didn't want the fuss, but people started showing up, asking about her. One reporter called her, "the guardian of Penrith Valley." I laughed at that. But deep down, I couldn't argue. She'd done something no human had managed to do, not once, but twice. Not with traps, not with poison, not with alarms or bait. Just with patience, precision, and an instinct older than any farm or fence or medicine. And she did it quietly. No fanfare, no reward, just a job well done. Now, every morning, I still find her waiting at the barn door. She's older now, doesn't move quite as fast. But she watches, she listens, and if anything stirs underfoot, if any rat dares come back, I reckon they won't last long. People ask me sometimes if I think it was luck, having a cat like that. Maybe it was, but I like to think it was something more. Because in the end, when things were falling apart, and the usual ways failed us, it wasn't a machine or a man or a medicine that turned the tide. It was a cat, Marmalade, and if you ever doubt what a good cat can do, come visit my farm. I'll show you the spot near the pig shed. I'll point out the old ash wall where the nest used to be. And if you're lucky, you might even see her, perched quiet on a fence post, eyes steady, tail curled like a question mark. Still watching, still guarding, still the best damn mouser in the county.